I had to ask myself, is my writing timeless or not? Because these kind of books that are really good for a year or two, I mean, that's great. But at the end of the day, don't you want people reading it one generation after the another? That's been really helpful for me.
Welcome to the podcast that helps speakers and writers like you grow their impact and income. This is Stage, Page, and Screen. Now, David, when you got your book deal for Made to Belong, you kind of faced this interesting gap. And tell me if you think this is unfair, but this is, as both your friend and your literary agent, this is sort of my assessment of the situation. You had this clear vision for a book that you wanted to write on Christian community and belonging. At the time, you were an excellent speaker and an okay writer. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay. So that gap is quite common among speakers and communicators. So how did you begin to close that gap between what you could do on stage versus what you could do on page and begin to march towards your vision for this book, Made to Belong?
Yeah, I would say, writing a book is something that I thought I would never do, but I realized that that once I got excited about an idea and I wanted to share with the whole world, book format is one of the best ways to do so. But then, speaking it versus writing it is not the same thing. And so I had a real difficult time really articulating with precision and clarity, with nuances and the complexities of what writing is all about. I just didn't know how to navigate all that. And so I think I remember you saying like, hey, like you should look for a writing coach. And that was really humbling for me. I'm like, wait, it's like my idea. And I'm the one that's talking about it. I have expertise, at least somewhat expertise in this area. And I remember having meeting this writing coach, Mick, and for him to kind of coach me on the process of writing, how to articulate in a certain way, what the audience actually is looking for, how to excavate some of the stuff that's in my own soul. So we spent a lot of time like talking together and writing drafts together, and that really helped clarify my vision or my passion, my excitement behind it.
Mm-hmm. When you say you guys would write a draft together, can you talk me through practically what that would look like? I mean, would you be on Zoom and you're in a shared Google Doc and you're writing it in real time, or you would excavate, as you said, sort of a concept? You would both go away and maybe write a version of it and then try to merge those together. Practically, how did that relationship with sort of an editor that you went out and spent your own money and hired?
Yeah.
Quite wise move, unusual move. Not a lot of folks are willing to do that. What did that relationship with Mick look like?
Yeah, so first of all, I shared with him my vision and at least how the chapters would break down and the flow of the book. And he coached me on that first. Like, hey, I don't think that chapter makes sense. Hey, I think you should do that and save that for your ending or your finale. And so we kind of talked through overarching movements of the book. And then afterwards, I started just writing chapter by chapter. And when I wrote a chapter, it was half-baked, unfinished. Man, as an Asian, this is hard to say, but an F, right? I need a therapist now after this.
Am I allowed to laugh at that? I'm not sure where the line is here.
Yeah, and so it was a real F, right? Not a B plus F, right? Like, and I would send it in, and he would take a look, and he would both edit it in real time, but also comment on it, like, hey, like I think you need to write this paragraph in this way. So he did both. He actually dove into my writing, but he also gave thoughts around it. And then I would take it back and rewrite that chapter again with all of his thoughts. And so I think we went back and forth at least 2 to 3 times for each chapter. And that really helped.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the psychology of this for you, because as I said, this is not an uncommon struggle with folks who are speakers first, and then because of their speaking gift, they get a writing opportunity. I recall several instances where you would be excited about a book. I'm thinking of one instance. We went and had a poke bowl. We're sitting in my vehicle. You're telling me about this chapter. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then you would go write the chapter, and I'm like, what? Ew, what happened? Like what you told me in the car is like a 9.8. What I'm reading here is a 6.2. Again, I'm not trying to knock you. I had that exact same struggle myself. But what was your psychology and thinking as you were kind of improving those two gifts in real time?
Yeah, I think I had to find my writing voice, that which was different from my speaking voice. I didn't know that, so that was really confusing for me. Right, that when I'm writing, there's more words that needs to be used to communicate my idea. Usually, when you're speaking, you're trying to do it in more of a concise way. I mean, you're limited, right? Sometimes in a TED Talk, you're doing 15 to 18 minutes, or in a regular teaching, you're given anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. But a book is not 30, 40 minutes. It's 7, 8 hours. And so to stretch out your idea in a way where you're still holding on to your vision and goal and still not be wordy, even though you're stretching out your idea. How do you navigate that? That was really confusing for me. And so, yeah, oftentimes I would sit in a coffee shop. So I wrote, from like 5 to 8 a.m. every morning, 6 days a week for about a year. And sometimes I would be just drinking my coffee in depression. And it was a lot of just staring at blank pages and just feeling so sad about my life, and remembering the contract that I signed and being so happy about that moment and reminiscing. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of that. But I think those are all needed. That there's a grind to it that people don't really talk about. There's a lot of low moments where you are really depressed and sad that people don't really talk about. Like, oh, I wrote a book, and you just show the kind of the final result of that. Here's the cover, and here's how you can pre-order. But people don't realize that there's a lot of low moments, and how do you navigate that is really important as a writer. And I know you didn't mention this, but I also you asked me to get feedback on my rough draft from like 15 to 20 like readers.
Yes.
Like
and David, I don't really ask. There's no question mark at the end of that.
My gosh, like that was really painful for me to hear people's thoughts on the first draft of my writing. And because oftentimes, both in your speaking and in your writing, what you're saying, your identity is wrapped up in that for good and bad reasons. It's part of your story, so I understand the attachment behind it. But oftentimes, you're too attached where now you feel like you're personally being attacked. I mean, many times you had a lot of good things to say, but I went home crying. And my wife, who is a therapist, had to do a lot of work. And will bill you, Josh.
She would bill you.
No, she will bill you.
Oh, wait a minute.
This is.
You need to reread your representation agreement. I think you are in charge of those therapy bills.
Yes.
So, if I recall, part of that focus group, wasn't there I think there were 3 or 4 questions. And I think one of them was a 1 to 10 numeric question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought one of the questions we set up was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how helpful was this chapter to you? Is that correct?
Correct. Those are actual exact words. Yes.
So as that feedback on those initial chapters is coming in, where are those scoring for folks on sort of the helpful quotient?
Yeah, on average, I think it was about a good 6 or 7.
Okay.
And I think you gave me like a 4 one time, I think that was being generous. That was being very generous
I'm
of
hearing
you.
a theme here. A theme.
But I would say I think I knew that those were the numbers coming in. I expected them, but to see it is a different thing, right? And to also process that real time was hard, but they were very helpful for me to have an honest assessment of my own work to really better myself. And so it did motivate me to write, rewrite, write, rewrite over and over again.
Let's dig deeper into this idea of the value of a focus group, because as someone who is a speaker first, one of the benefits you get in speaking is that you get constant, immediate, real-time feedback. If you're saying something in front of a live group of 100 folks or whatever and it's not working, you develop a sense of that. You can adjust, you can pivot, you can go in a direction you feel might be helpful. With a book, you work on it often in isolation for a year, and then you don't know those gaps in its helpfulness or its connectedness until it's too late to make those corrections. So that was part of the idea, I think, behind the focus group. And, that scoring, are you familiar, David, with the Net Promoter Score?
No, what is that?
Okay, so you probably you go get your oil changed or something, and they email you this survey, and the Net Promoter Score tends to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend? If you're familiar, if you got these email surveys. So if you're I might not have these numbers exactly correct, but the spirit of it is correct. So if you're like 1 to 5, you're known as a detractor, meaning you will go and intentionally tell your friends, don't do business with these folks. This experience was so poor. Please avoid it at all costs because you're a friend of mine and I care about you. If you're in the 6, 7, or 8, you do nothing. So you don't say, hey, don't go get your oil changed here, but you also don't say, go get your oil changed here.
Whoa.
Now, if you scored a 9 or a 10, you text 5 of your buddies and you're like, hey, I would never tell you about an oil change place, but these folks are awesome. The pricing is fair. They're cool. Their lobby's great to hang out in, coffee, Wi-Fi, etc. And so that, I think chapter by chapter, that is what we were trying to do, is we wanted someone to finish reading one of your chapters on belonging and community and go, that was a 9 or 10 helpfulness, such that I'm going to be a promoter of this book and its ideas.
That's good. Yeah. And I think had I waited until I finished writing the entire book and got feedback, I think it would have been too late for me to edit, because you've already wrote so much that it's just harder to work through it. But because I was getting feedback real time in the draft 1, 2, 3 versions of that, I think the blessing behind it was that I was able to pivot and tweak faster. And if there was like a larger concept that was like, hey, that's actually not helpful for the direction of the book, and if that concept is interwoven into like 4 or 5 chapters of the book, now you're like, now I'm already depressed. Now I'm double depressed, right? And so so I think there's the real-time feedback gave me the quickness of the edits, which I think were probably one of the most important parts of writing the book, at least for me, at least for my own experience. And I get that some folks don't welcome that, and I get that.
Now, we've been talking around this book and sort of how this book came together. David, take 2 minutes, tell the folks about Made to Belong, give them the elevator pitch on what the book is, and kind of talk through this 5-part framework that you came up with for belonging.
Yeah, so the pitch is that I was born in South Korea, came to the U.S. when I was 10 years old. And so I wasn't prepared for all the pain of loneliness that I would experience. I had to forge and build community everywhere I went. My neighborhood, city, friends, school, everything changed before my eyes. And so I took different coping mechanisms I didn't know at that time to soothe with my pain of loneliness. And as I became older, I realized that it's not just an immigrant who feels the pain of loneliness. Like the whole world feels it. And I'm a pastor and I serve at a local church community. And I realize that whether you are religious or not, everyone is experiencing this pain of loneliness. And the pandemic only has revealed that we are all lonely and we were just distracted by it. And so these practices, these 5 practices that I found first for myself and for my community, and hopefully it's helpful for everybody else, are ways in which we can practically build a deeper community where we are all tired of shallow conversations and shallow relationships. So the 5 practices are: number 1, priority, that at the end of the day, you have to first show up and commit to one another in order for anything to be built. Number 2, chemistry, that we all got to have some kind of affinities and bonds and shared experiences and shared values that begin to build greater connection. And once you have that, I do believe that the third one is vulnerability, where we have to open up in order to be seen. The irony is that often we hide ourselves to be seen, but we have to open up to be seen. And then it's got to be met with the 4th practice, empathy, that it's met with support and care. And if you do, the 5th one is accountability. Then we can really speak into one another and challenge one another to become all that you are meant to be. And if you're able to do that, man, like these 5 practices help you build the kind of community I think that we all are longing for. That's my 2 minutes.
It's a genuinely great book. I mean, obviously I'm biased. I'm personal friends with David. I'm in a men's Bible study with David, and I own 80% of the book. Is that what the commission was? I think 80%, the customary 80%. Yeah, the book is great. So now that we kind of have an understanding of this book, talk to me about what you thought getting a book deal would be like versus what it was actually like. Take us through the whole journey. Take as much time as you need, sort of maybe some of your naivete as to what it was, some of those sobering moments, and both some of the highs and lows along that journey.
Yeah. So the first thing is I had no idea how slow these publishers were. My gosh. I don't think they read their emails. I mean, I don't understand. And so
we had to fax them, David.
Yeah. So these traditional publishers, like, I mean, I love them, but one of the things I didn't realize is, like, once I signed a contract, I thought I would have a book ready in like 5 months, and I think that was and just knowing how well oiled these machines might be, I'm like, man, you guys are like, I mean, I signed with HarperCollins. I mean, they're like, I thought I was ready to go. And I realized that, my gosh, it's going to take me a year and a half to get my book out there. So the waiting period and the silence in between and the lack of communication or the slowness of the communication was deeply frustrating and surprising. But now looking back, I understand. I mean, they're dealing with like everything and all, like thousands of authors. I understand, but it just took me a long time to really process that. Number 1. Number 2 is that from where I started and to how the book came out, it's about 60% different. And that was surprising. Like, so I came with a vision, like, oh, I'm going to do this for like these, I want to first build it for small groups, right? And so like these smaller communities. And then when I pitched it to the publisher, what they pitched back was that that's fine, but you want to really speak to the individuals, not just small groups. And so, because at the end of the day, the individual, you have to sell it to the person. And so that was actually a great feedback. So that was a win for me. But I had to pivot significantly to who my audience is, how I would pitch the book, how I would write the book. All of that changed throughout my process of working with them. So the benefit of a traditional publisher is that now I just talked about how slow they are, but here's at least something that I do appreciate is that they understand the audience and the market of today. They understand what books sell, what books don't sell. And I know this sounds so weird because people are like, at the end of the day, you just need to share your heart and like, and just share your idea. And that's all that matters. Kind of, but if it doesn't sell, then no one gets to read your idea, right? And so people who are like, you need to be authentic to your voice. I'm like, kind of, yes and no, I would say. Yes, you need to be true to yourself. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and people do need to buy your book, and the publishers do need to sell them. And that's where their wisdom, their knowledge, their 100+ years of experience can really benefit you to like wake you up to your false realities of like how you're going to sell your book.
Yeah,
those are a couple things.
Yeah, I mean, the critique that traditional publishers move very slow is 100% fair. It is 100% fair. I mean, we're closing book deals this month, and the publication date on these things are 2025 or 2026. And you go, that seems so far into the future. And I think their slowness is both the curse and the blessing. And the way in which it's often the blessing is that once the book is printed, that is what it is. And so if you wish you would have deliberately thought of something, been able to articulate something a bit more clearly, gather the evidence to back up a certain point that you're trying to make, which might convince someone of something, it's too late. And so I think that's the way in which, though all your critiques are fair, that's the way in which that slow, deliberate process that they force can be helpful, because at the end of the day, there's no marketing trickery you can do with a book to push someone's net promoter score of a book to a 9 or a 10. We've all had books, David, Jesse, where we read it and we just go, man, that sounded like an awesome book, and it was okay. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to ask for a refund, but it was fine. And then we've all had, 3, 4, maybe 5 books a year, maybe even fewer, where you read the thing, you're genuinely moved, it's practical, it's helpful, and you immediately pick up your phone and you text 5 buddies and be like, you would be an idiot not to buy this book, or I've already shipped you this book. It's so helpful. So looking back, what are some of those aspects of the slowness of that process that now in retrospect you go, there's wisdom in that?
Yeah. So I think I spent, almost till the end, these like going back and forth on the 5 practices, which are the anchors of my book. And I remember calling you multiple times, even towards the end, like trying to figure out, is this the right word for it? And I'm glad that I spent a year and a half, like just constantly thinking through, is this the right practice? Because now I am really proud of my work and I can defend my work. I think if I rushed it, I think I would have chosen a different practice, and I'm not sure. And I might have probably would have regretted some of the practices that I released earlier when I was writing it. One thing that's been really helpful for the slowness of these publishers is that I had to ask myself, is my writing timeless or not? And that's been really helpful for me. So I'm writing on loneliness like during the pandemic, and I'm going, after the pandemic, are people going to be still lonely? Are they still going to navigate through the same pains or not? And so I really had to learn human behavior, and I had to look and read the book not in the context of the pandemic, because I knew that it would end at a certain point. And so even once the pandemic ends, like, will people still navigate through the pain of loneliness, and would we still find books for that or not? And so to really ask the question, are my concepts timeless or not, was really helpful for me. And I'm grateful for that, those pauses, because these kind of books that are really good for a year or two, that's great, but at the end of the day, don't you want people reading it one generation after the another? And that's been impacted for decades, not for a few weeks or a few years. And so that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, the timelessness of a book is really the holy grail. That's what you're trying to aim for. How do you think about when you're writing a book on a topic where the topic itself is quite vulnerable and embarrassing, how you position or even title that book? So, for example, imagine if I'm reading a book on an airplane named Made to Belong versus something that says, I'm lonely. You know, if the book is titled I'm a lonely loner with no friends. How, 7 steps to overcoming your pathetic life and becoming all that God intended.
Make sure your seatmate sees the cover really well.
Absolutely. Well, then they're going to want to sit next to me. They're going to take that middle seat. That is not what I'm aiming for. How do you think through a challenge like that? Because sometimes the topics we want to write on are pains we ourselves experienced, but there's also can be hesitancy to those topics because of the social kind of opinions people could have about that. So how do you think of making a topic such as loneliness accessible?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. I mean, I played around with the title "I Have No Friends," I think. No.
Surprisingly, the domain name was not available.
And I think there is shame attached to the books that you're holding, right? And so because again, sometimes we show off our intellect by the books that we're reading, right? I mean, this is very much human psychology, right, at its foundation. And so I wanted to help people hold a book that they could be proud of, and at the same time that it would actually solve the real-time problems that they were dealing with. And so to navigate all of that, I do think to use subtitles as almost a way in which, and so I actually thought subtitles were not that important, but I realized that subtitles can be real good, helpful anchor and explanation to your title. And so to understand that you actually have 1-2 punch, you have the title and the subtitle was really helpful for me, that you don't have to put all your eggs in your basket with the title. So that's helpful. And then number 2, that in the title to make it concise, be a little bit felt needy, but to be for folks to be proud of the book that they're holding, I think is really the key to coming up with your title and your subtitle.
See, the more we talk about this, the more I go, this is exactly why it takes 1.5 years. I mean, just the esoteric, rant you went on about a title. You go, to land at something that's going to accomplish those things. That itself is going to take 6 months of things you think is the right idea, and then you realize isn't.
Right. And also the words like change. And so you have to figure out like how are the words being used? Because once you decide on a title, like for example, like green, I mean, green can be like color green, but nowadays green is used for our vegan and our friends who are thinking about the environment. And so like we got to figure out like what are the words that we are choosing, how it's being understood by the audience today, how it's been understood 15 years ago, and how it might, I mean, you may not really have a foresight on that, but how could this word be hijacked even? And like, you got to like think through all of that, because your title's like 3-4 words really. And so to give significant weight to that, I do think matters. And like for me, the word belong was really important because Brené Brown, when she began to use the word belonging, like, I mean, the whole world just like gave her the kind of invitation to speak into their lives. I mean, they were drawn by that word. They were mesmerized by that word. And so I felt like, oh wow, she's tapping into something that humans are really longing for. And so I chose the word belong for that reason, because it felt like there was a strong resonance with the whole world. And so kind of even looking at, how the world is reacting to certain words or not, I do think that that's a study of it on its own.
I didn't realize that was part of your thinking there. I see a lot of speakers or authors who they think they need to be the first to kind of invent an idea or a methodology. What I'm hearing in you is you kind of viewed the Brene Brown proliferation of the importance of belonging not as a crap, she took my idea, but rather as sort of proving that there's a hungry group of readers out there that want to learn about this topic.
Totally. And so to build upon a movement or to build upon what's already working, I just don't think that's stupidity. I think there's wisdom in that. And to lean into that together, I think it's helpful. So yeah, and once I kind of figured that out, I had to, in my subtitle, subtitle is called 5 Practices for Cultivating Community in a Disconnected World. And so I thought about what I remember saying. I remember asking you, why 5? I think people are looking for like something that's tangible. People are saying like, oh, I mean, belonging is such a big concept, right? Like, oh man, like I'm lonely, I need community. But if you tell me there's like just 5 that I need to learn and study and develop, okay, I can digest that. And so to give practical, tangible ways to process a large concept, I do think that's really important. I mean, you and I were talking about Atomic Habits. Like I think it's still like top 10 and it's been top 10 forever, right? And it's because at the end of the day, I mean, there are so many habit formation books out there, and there are new habit formation books that are coming out every week, at least it feels like. But the reason why Atomic Habits is so powerful is that it's just so practical. He boils down habit into such precise, actionable ways in which you can build deep, lifelong changing habits. And I do think that's what people are hungry for and longing for.
Yes. Now, the content of your book, I mean, part of you was writing this from the perspective of a small group pastor at a church, dealing day in, day out with the positive of someone having community or the negative of someone lacking community. But you also wanted to buoy the content and your ideas with evidence-based practices, research, even for folks that might not share your same faith background. This is something not all faith-based or Christian authors do. They just rely very heavily on their anecdotal experience, plus sprinkle in some Bible verses and call it a day. For you, that aspect of human psychology, why was that important to you, and how do you think of that when you're presenting your ideas?
Yeah, so in the last 10 years, I've done, I mean, for all sorts of reasons. I mean, I've had some real low moments in my life. I began to do a lot of kind of inner work and got some counseling therapy. I'm married to a therapist, so probably be a lifelong work. God knew that I had too many problems in my life. But navigating through that, I realized that, wow, like, not everyone sees the world the same way. Not everyone interprets the world the same way. And so I began to realize that my audience are they have different ways in which they relate to me, connect to me, or even build trust with the author or a speaker. And so, I mean, there are many personality theories out there, and we can get into all sorts of that. I mean, that's not the purpose of this conversation, but just to give an example, like, for example, Enneagram, which is really popular, even just learning about the Enneagram, I realized that there are people who are very heart people, who are very emotion based. And then there are folks who are very much head triad, which is like very much driven by logic and data and facts. And then there are folks who are more of a gut or bodily instinct, right? People are like, I don't know the reason for it, but like I sense it in my body. And I think we navigate the world through one of three ways. Actually, we need all three and a balance of all three to do it really in a healthy way. And to recognize that, that's helped me in both my speaking and in my writing. That as I'm thinking about my audience, there are people who are going, show me some actual data and facts about what you're saying. But there are also some people going, I'm bored to death. If you don't have a moving story right now, I will fall asleep and close this book. And there are people who are like, like in my body, like, I don't feel like you're trustworthy. I don't think you're clear. Like, you're not doing it in a way where that's like resonating with my soul. Like, and so to like see those audiences and to write in a way where I'm speaking to all three was really helpful for me. And that's actually helped me in my speaking as well. And but yeah, I'm a writer and a speaker in Silicon Valley, and so we do have a lot more head-based folks. And so to use accurate facts and data was really important to me, and to use credible institutions, right? And that was really helpful for me as well.
Now, the three triads of the Enneagram that you just described, head, heart, and gut. And be honest, because I don't know if you actually were methodical about this, but were you methodical in placing or inviting people into that focus group we discussed earlier? Did you try to balance a portfolio of that focus group? Like, let me make sure I have some head folks, some heart folks, some gut folks. Or is that something looking back, you go, next time I would be a bit more methodical about that?
If I'm honest, I would say my first focus was I had to figure out who my trusted friends were because I was going to be vulnerable with my writing. And so that was my first criteria. Who are the people that I trust? And then number two, of the people that I trust, who are great thinkers, potential speakers or writers who understand my world, though not everybody was in that world. I did use that criteria because their expertise would be very beneficial for my own world. And so, and then the third was like, hey, do I have folks who are balanced in the three? That was my third criteria. It wasn't my first. I'm just being real.
No, please do. Let's debate your second idea there a little bit. This idea of inviting folks into the focus group who they themselves are writers or speakers. I'd like to hear your pushback and point of view on this. My concern often, and if I'm working on writing something or working with an author, is sometimes in inviting those folks in, they kind of get almost too snobby about the writing versus, is this clear? Is this helpful? Sometimes bound up in them could be some jealousy, like, oh, well, David's got to deal with HarperCollins, but, I have more published articles than he does, or more social media followers than he does. So that cohort of speakers and authors, what panned out? Like, were they actually more helpful because they understand, getting in the weeds, getting in a document, line editing, making something more clear? Or did maybe they kind of nerd out and go on tangents that were a bit too snobby that, a random book reader in Iowa really wouldn't give a crap about?
Yeah. So I totally hear you. I would say it was only like 20 to 30% of the group was that. And so I'm glad it was only 20 to 30% because the other folks were not that. So it was your just common readers. And that was where great feedback came. But the 20-30% that were speakers and writers, they went on a rabbit trail here and there. But sometimes the way they think about this topic or the questions that they would ask me, like, hey, like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like, I'm not sure either. And so they were helpful in different ways. And so I would say having a balance of the two, for me, was great. And for some, you may not have close friends who are speakers and writers, and I get that. But to have that in my inner circle was, for me, beneficial. I didn't have to, though I didn't have to take in everything that they said. So that's helpful, right? The good thing about feedback in kind of the feedback cohort is that I'm not doing everything that they're asking me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so to just hear their thoughts was good for me. And if you do have smart people in the group, what's good is that like, oh, like my ideas actually like hold to like when other folks are able to, like other smart folks who are reading it, like it logically makes sense. And so maybe there was a confidence boost that helped me in through those feedback loops. And so part of it was maybe selfish, but even that was okay, again, because I was depressed half the time. So,
how would you parse through, I'm thinking like someone like me, it's like my wife describes me as often wrong, never uncertain. Right. So any idea I present you, it's going to be like, this is the idea that's going to make or break your book. And so I'm going to give you 3 or 4 of those a chapter, be it with me or anyone else. How would you parse through, okay, that's an interesting theory versus that's a strong theory and I think quite applicable and needs to be corrected in this book?
Yeah. So, that's tough because, yeah, I don't know if I got it right all the time, but what I would do is, yeah, sometimes you would email me or text me something, and you weren't really should. You never start the word with should or
No.
maybe. I mean, those are not part of your
Consider,
vocabulary.
explore.
Yeah, explore. Yeah, David, this should go on, right? I mean, and I get that. And so what I began to do is, once I took the idea, I had to make sure that it would first resonate with my own like spirit of the book and my soul. And if it did, I would sit on it. And then I would, again, this was the beauty of it, I would talk about it with my writing coach. And so there was another third party who was able to examine the idea with me. It's like, hey, David, like I've been working with you for 6 months now. That idea like doesn't really work in the flow of the book, or that idea is like, oh, that was the missing piece that we've been emailing back and forth. And so that's the beauty of having like someone who's like working with you throughout the whole book, because they understand all of your highs and lows and all the questions that you've had about the book. And then the third person that I really began to talk this out loud with was my wife. And for me, that was helpful. My wife, she when she hears the word belonging, she has a allergic reaction now. Like, so she can't. Yeah, she doesn't want to ever talk about it. Yeah. But that's helped me to process, because she knows me, she knows what I'm about, what I'm for. So some people say, hey, like leave that out. But for me, she's seen my loneliness journey. And so it was deeply personal. So she was able to speak to it from a different angle. So that's how I parsed out what was helpful, what wasn't helpful.
Now, let's say a close friend of yours was shopping a book, got their first ever traditional publishing book deal. What would you advise them on? What would you caution them on? What would you urge them to do with the wisdom and experience that you have now, having recently gone through the whole journey from pitching to writing to marketing and pitching the book?
Yeah. Well, the first question I would say is how excited they are about your material and your ideas. I think that's really a tell. Um, because if they're not equally excited about your material, then it's going to be a long journey for you to get them excited, for you to like, hey, could you advertise here? Hey, could you tell Target? Like, I mean, that's going to be just a long journey. So the especially your main editor and your person that's going to be in charge of the book, how excited they are, number one. And then number two, to not go with the one that offers the most amount of money at the end of the day. I think that's really wise to think about. Again, every publisher has pros and cons, but to see not whoever's throwing the most amount of money, but again, who you think is going to really champion your material and develop it in a way that's going to be, yeah, that's going to uh, be really awesome for the world to see, right? And so I think that's really important thing to. And then number 3 is to, as you're shopping for the book, to ask them questions about your content and your material, and to see if they have any insights on that. So when I was writing on community and belonging, like the HarperCollins and the team that I signed with, they already knew the 4 or 5 best books that on community. They themselves have read it. They knew how my book would be different from that. Like they were already excited about that. And so that was really helpful, and how my book could come out at a different angle and to really champion a particular angle for a community that was really different. So like even seeing all of that, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And so that's what I would say about just folks who are kind of navigating through that.
Now, zooming out as a literary agent on the other side of this thing, working on a couple dozen book deals, I would say 80% of the time, the publisher who is the most enthusiastic about your content gets the nuances of your content. 80% of the time, they're actually the publisher that comes in with the most handsome advance offer. And I think that's part of the way in which they're communicating their enthusiasm is like, hey, we're going to put a significant chunk of change on the line here because we want to show you you're serious. We want to have skin in the game.
We believe in your material.
We believe in you. And like, look, at the end of the day, this is a business. So if we're putting X forward, we believe that we can make back 2X or 3X or 4X.
Yeah, that's good. And I think this is something that I wish I knew earlier. I'm going back to 2 questions back, is that I had no idea that developing your own audience and platform was a big part of this journey. And so like, I just could not care less about that part of my process. And part of it is because of my own insecurity. Part of it, as a Christian leader, I know the danger of building platforms and what that could do to your own ego and even your own character and your own personal lifestyle. But having said all that, I didn't recognize the value of building that and how important that is, to have an audience that actually follows you, because not just like, oh, an Instagram follow, but like follows you because they believe in the things that are coming out from your life. I underestimated that. And so that's been something that I've been struggling to build, and I'm having successes here and failures here and there, but that's been interesting to watch.
And we'll be right back.
All right, so let me pitch you something. Are you someone that wants to launch and grow a speaking business? Maybe it's time to write and publish that book. Perhaps you want to create and sell your online course. Well, I put together a free on-demand training video for you. It's not going to promise you the moon. It's not going to say it's going to happen quickly or without tears or sacrifice. But I'll pragmatically lay out for you exactly how to chart a course to do all these things we just talked about. You can find this free on-demand training video at stagepagescreen.com. That's stagepagescreen.com.
Now, back to the show.
That is a tricky thing to navigate, and I'll speak quite candidly. I mean, most nonfiction book deals, a major publisher won't even consider an author unless they have 100,000 followers somewhere. 100,000 downloads of a podcast, 100,000 followers on Instagram, 100,000 folks on their email list, 6 figures somewhere. And, we were able to land you, candidly, a mid 5-figure book deal with your largest social media following being in less than 5,000, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And, for the...
And and mainly they're bots, I think.
They're bots that we bought on Fiverr the week before we went out and shopped the deal, which is it's a way of Jesus. I think in Romans, in the book of Romans, he talks about the bots, and isn't that right, Jesse? I know you can speak to this.
Absolutely, Romans is exactly the right book to quote for this. Yes,
that's good. Thank you. Good. I appreciate you being here to encourage my untheological poor babe.
I'm actually a bot, so I just
got it.
Yeah,
good. This is my finely tuned AI co-host Jesse here. He gets out of line sometimes, but I just have to reprogram him a bit. Yeah, it's a tricky thing because we go back to that Net Promoter Score. It's like you can't, Atomic Habits. If a book is so dang helpful, there's nothing you could do to stop it. There's nothing you can do to stop it. But for a publisher, the phrase they often use, because I see it in the books they pass on. So I'm shopping a book right now with an author. It's a guy David. I won't say his name here.
Yep.
But, if you started your journey as a 6 out of 10 writer, this guy today is a 9 out of 10 writer. Just a phenomenal writer. But has very, very small platform and no ambition to grow it. He is of the mind, and this is what should be true, that my ideas should stand on their own. My ideas should carry their own weight. But the phrase the publishers are using when they pass on his book is, while the material is fantastic, some of the best we've read on this topic, we don't think his platform could break out this book. That's the phrase they use. We don't think his platform could break out the book in a crowded market. So it's like the platform is this necessity to get the plane up and off the ground. But then once the plane is up and off the ground, it's going to be about the quality of the material. But that up and off the ground, that is the necessary evil. If we want to be skeptical or glass half empty about it, that is the necessary role that the platform plays, is to get the ideas up and off the ground, to give them a fighting chance in a crowded marketplace to go find their people, to go find their readers. How do you now, looking back on it, view the role of the platform and maybe what you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah. So, the first thing is, man, I wish I bought more bots. I think
that'll be in the show notes.
Link to the bots you can buy.
And Josh will take 80% cut.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would. Yeah. I underestimated. I love the word you use, crowded. It's a noisy world. Everybody's producing content. Everybody's sending something out every second. My emails are flooded with all sorts of things that are coming in. And so in a noisy world, how do you at least let them see that there is a voice out there? There's a book out there. And so to create that space, I do think that platforms matter. And I do think having the right kinds of connections and conversations and spaces in which your book or your work can be highlighted, I do think it's really important. And so, looking back, maybe I should have paid a little bit more attention to it. So what I mean by that is I just had Facebook, Instagram, emails, but I did not really curate or paid attention to care for them. They were just a number on my screen. But I wish I was a little bit more intentional about the folks that were connected to me. And maybe that sounds a little bit you're being a little too businessy with these relationships. But no, because I believe that my book can actually help you and help your community. And if I believe that that's true, then to forge these relationships and connections in a way where sometime down the road that we can, I would use the word partner together. I think there's a way in which I can benefit and you can benefit, and that we can partner, and it could be a win-win for both. I think it's weird if it's just like, I'm just using you for my gain, and I think that's where it gets weird. But if there's a good partnership behind it, I do think that that's a beautiful thing. And partnerships are how the world is created, and that we bring better things into the world. And so I wish I had better understanding of partnership, just like how I'm partnering with a traditional publisher to bring out this book, right? And I think you need to see platforms in the same way. Like we can partner together. I can give you some materials that can really help your marriage, your community, your faith, but you can partner with me in this way as well.
I hadn't thought about that until you both said it, but the idea of that building of a platform, which I too was sort of saw as annoying, and this, why would you even require that? That just proves that this is just a corrupt system and blah, blah, blah. My excuse for not wanting to do the hard work, probably. But the idea of stewardship of those ideas, stewardship of those partnerships, that this is part of the whole thing, that here's what it means to write and publish a book, is to help develop that community, help develop those ideas within that community. That's very helpful to see. So that it's not this, I've got to do this part and I've got to do this part. No, this is all part of the same journey toward publishing. And so it doesn't have to be this separate, distinct, I hate this sort of stuff. You can come to see it as part of, stewarding those ideas, cultivating those partnerships.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, for a publisher, they use it as a metric to go, is this person, are folks listening to this person? Do folks already, without our involvement, turn to, is there a group of people that consistently turn to this person for answers, insight, wisdom on fill in the blank topic? Well, if so, if they're an indie band and they've been able to already sell 100,000 albums, where we can help them sell 1 million. But that journey to that first 100,000, that's something that they've either done or they haven't. And that's the journey they need to go on alone. And if they're not quite at that check mark, at that checkpoint yet, most traditional publishers go, it's too soon for us to get involved yet. They're still figuring out their voice and their lane. So, David, I know that you talked about, shifting to your influence on stage as a speaker. I know you mentioned, the first 12 years you were delivering messages as a speaker, as a youth pastor, in a variety of roles, that you solicited no feedback and developed some bad habits because of that. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So again, without exaggeration, in 12 years of being a pastor, I counted close to 1,400, I think, unique messages, 1,400 bad. I didn't talk about the quality yet. 1,400. So the sheer amount is like, wow, I'm going, wow, that's a lot. But what ended up happening is, because I did not ask for feedback, again, out of my insecurity, because my teaching was tied, my speaking was tied so much to my identity as a person, as a speaker, as a pastor, as a leader. And so I could not face the reality that, hey, there would be some parts of it that could be bad. And so I didn't welcome it. I did not even look for it. And I remember distinctly, I was giving a message, and one youth girl, she's like, I think she was like in 8th grade or something. She came up and she said, I'm just letting you know, all of your jokes are so bad. And I was her leader. I was her pastor. So I used
that youth girl. I was
so good. And I think what I ended up saying was out of my own insecurity and I just kind of used my authority, right? And like, how dare you? Like you don't know anything. You're in 7th grade, like right, like, and I'm 19,
like, so much wiser.
Yeah, like I'm in college, like whatever. Like how dare you? Like you don't know anything about speaking. And so I think I used that as my own defense mechanism to protect myself from the pain. And because of that, I share all that to say, because of that, I spent 12 years really teaching. And what ended up happening is I developed bad habits. And now that I'm 12 years in, it takes longer time to undo some of those bad habits. And so about now 15 years in, I meet this wonderful, gentle gentleman named Josh Schiff.
Same name, different person. Same name, different person.
That's right.
That's why he's so gentle.
Yeah. Really kind, soft-spoken, not really critical at all about people's speaking abilities at all, right? And I don't think he understands how speaking works. And so he heard some of the teaching, and I remember, like, it took me a long time. People have told me, like, hey, you need to get a speaking coach. Hey, Josh is in our community. He's wonderful. And he'll get you like 40% better immediately. But just remember, brace yourself.
Is that what people would say?
Yeah.
That sounds quite fair.
Yeah.
Like the Oklahoma weather he grew up in. You must brace yourself.
It's turbulent.
And I don't know if you remember, but like I remember going to him and be like, hey, I would like some I would like some speaking coaching on some of my thoughts. And I think at that time, you didn't really give me much because we didn't really have any kind of friendship at that point. But once we became friends, I remember you giving me some feedback on that. And one of the first things that you told me was, hey, when you get excited, you start to have a high pitch, high tone, and you go so fast. Like you speak like 100 words. Like, I mean, you're just going on and on and on. And you need to calm the blank down, right? I think those are, yeah. And I said, how do I do that? First of all, I've never heard that feedback before. Again, because I never welcomed any feedback. And number two, and I said, how do I then calm down so that I'm not excited for the entirety of my 40 minutes of the teaching? There's got to be almost a flow to that. And I remember, do you remember this? You said, David, you need to sit down on a stage.
Yes.
And I said, dude, like, what do you mean sit down? I'm speaking in front of like 500 people. Like, I'm going to sit on a chair. Like, I'm an inspirational speaker. Like, I got to have dynamics. I got to like use my hands. I got to walk. I got to turn and like look at different parts of the crowd. Like, you know what I mean?
You're like the Tasmanian devil. Yes. Yes. I recall this very clearly. I think my word among my loving, encouraging words to you, I believe, was that you're monotone. And so people often,
that was surprising.
Yeah.
People often think of monotone as boring, as low energy, but mono meaning one. It was one energy level, one volume, one pace, one intensity the entire time. Yeah. So long term, my goal for you was for that to be multidimensional. For yes, indeed, there to be moments where you're loud, where you're high energy, where you're intentionally moving, but also moments where you slow it way down, where there's longer pauses, where the rhythm and the cadence slows down. But I knew I couldn't start you there. So I remember, I think my challenge to you, or my decree rather, was for your next message, you were to sit in a stool the entire time. Talk us through that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a live audience. I think I said no in the beginning, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think you know what you're talking about. And I think I resisted it for a bit. And then I realized, yeah, like if I really want to take this seriously, I think that's the way to start, because once I sit, I'm anchored, right? And that's gonna give me a different perspective in which I engage with the room. So I hated it. I dreaded it. I remember getting the stool like earlier in the week and just like staring at it,
cursing
and I'm going like, yeah, like how am I gonna do that? And doing some couple practice runs in between, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. But every time I got excited, the stool, like, because you can't, I mean, like, you have to understand, before the stool, I mean, from the introduction of my name, I was like, right? It was like that the whole time. From my name
Let's
is
get
right.
ready to
I mean,
rumble.
it was that the whole time. And so
the man's step count would be 22,000 during a 30-minute sermon.
Yeah. And so to sit down, that really helped me to, I think, pause. I think that's where it really helped, to pause and to think about my words, because half the time when I was excited, I wasn't even thinking about the things that were coming out of my mouth as a speaker. Hey, and so I think that helped. And you did not just say one time, David, these habits were so ingrained in you. I think you said the next 10. And I hated that. And I did. I sat through, I think, almost all of them. I'm not quite sure if I did all 10, but I did up to like 8 or 9. And that's really reshaped my habit and the way in which I carry the energy into the room.
I found that's the entirety of Josh's advice. Typically, is just sit down.
That's right.
Here's a stool. Sit down.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Calm the F down. Yeah. As speakers, we have these strengths, and then we can begin to overcompensate for them, over rely on them, because using energy, dynamism, for me early on, it was humor. I could rely on humor instead of relying on depth, instead of relying on vulnerability, instead of deeply thinking about what I was going to say and how is this actually going to be helpful to someone. I could go, well, I don't have anything important to say. I don't have anything evidence-based to say. I don't particularly have anything helpful to say. So let me just overcompensate with my ability to be funny. And I think when we intentionally, for a period of time, remove that crutch, so for you, that would look like sitting for 10 messages. For me, that would look like, okay, you're going to do a 45-minute assembly with 800 students, and you're not allowed to tell a single joke. But you've still got to draw them in. You've still got to hook them. You've still got to say something meaningful and important. That is something almost no speaker is willing to do. Every speaker should do, because then when you reintroduce that strength you have, you've also now developed the other parts of your speech, which have atrophied because you keep, doing bicep curls nonstop, because that feeds your ego and you've already got some strength there. So of course that exercise feels good to do.
So good. That's why, I mean, we all know we need to exercise, but to have a coach behind you to figure out like, hey, like I noticed something that you can't really notice because you're just doing it at the moment. And to have a speaking coach and a writing coach, like it's changed like so much of the way in which I craft my messages and the way I deliver them, the way I communicate, the way I write. And so I know some folks out there may say like, hey, I don't need that. I'm already good. Even for folks like that, I'm already good enough. I mean, if you're 9.1, there's a way you can get to 9.4, and that could really serve the people that you're leading and caring for. And so I would encourage that, and it's going to be humbling. And I remember, just as you were talking about this, one of my favorite writers, his name is Steve Cuss, and he wrote a book on managing anxiety. And we live in an anxious world, and he said so much of his anxiety came from his performance to speak well. And so that shaped his identity, that shaped his anxiety. And every time he would come home, depending on how how well he did or he didn't do, that would shape his mood for the day or for the week. And so what he did was he intentionally gave a bad message. The entire 40 minutes he delivered the worst message he could ever craft.
Hopefully this was a pro bono gig.
To again rewire himself that I am not what I, and because so much of his anxiety came from his delivery, right? And so that he said that freed him. And I remember listening to that going like, yeah, it takes work. And I know that sounds scary, but once we do encounter that, I do think you're able to tap into some of the more beautiful areas of your gifts and talent mix that maybe you haven't been able to tackle, or bring down some of your biggest fears and insecurities and anxieties through these coaching sessions or feedback loops.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because when you're first starting out and maybe you're in the sixes as a speaker, you get some coaching or feedback or read a book or go through a course or whatever, and your improvements are miles. You know, you quickly go from a 6 to a 7 and then a 7 to a 7.5. When you get in the 8 or 9s, it's tricky because not only do you have this feedback loop of people telling you you're awesome and events going quite well and event planners that are hiring you being quite happy. So you have that can distract you from intentionally getting coaching. But also at that level, the growth now becomes millimeters. You know, you work really, really hard on something really, really specific. And 3 months later, you look back and you've moved from an 8.1 to an 8.2. And so I think that's why some folks that are more established, it can be harder to seek out that feedback because the movement is not as quick and as grand as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already hitting a single or a double, I think you can get lazy and just be like, "Hey, I got a double. I think that's good enough, right?" And so, instead of aiming for a home run, and so I do think that it's incremental, but it's definitely helpful. And so, one of the questions I remember, like in the earlier days of feedback loop, I would ask the question, "Hey, how was it?" That's a terrible question to ask. And I think, Josh, again, in your coaching, you help me. Like, you got to also ask the right questions. So it's not even about having the right coach. I mean, that's important, and having a feedback loop, which is important, but also getting the right kind of feedback. That's really the key. And so the question that you help me ask is, how can my teaching, my message be 10% better? Now, then the person has to actually parse out your entire message and go like, oh yeah, that word or that phrase, right? They're getting now into the details of the 8.1 to 8.2. But hey, that phrase, that can be confusing for this type of audience. Now, all of a sudden, wow, like, okay, to not use that phrase, that's going to help me get now 0.1% better, because now that community or that audience is not going to misinterpret that phrase and get into their own rabbit trail as you're now moving on to your third and the most important point. So now you've just had a win. Yes. And so I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, the how can it be 10% better too, I think makes the question less intimidating for the individual. Because how was it? It's like, it's super open-ended. You expect me to like
just say all positive.
Yeah, say all positive or fix the whole thing. Versus like one little bitty, hey, one little nitpicky thing. Yeah, I know you liked it, and thank you, Aunt Susan. But if there was one little nitpicky thing you would say that could make it 10% better, what would that be? I also find it helpful. Most folks are not like me. They're polite. They have a soul. They have feelings. So, prepping.
How do you spell feelings?
No idea. I have AI to do that. But prepping them with like, hey, I felt pretty good about that. So I'm not just looking for compliments. Please be brutally honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings, even if that's not true. Be brutally honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Would there be one little thing that you would say, maybe I should do a little differently next time? You're right, David. So much of it is knowing how to extract feedback from someone who could be helpful, but if left to their own demises, is going to actually not be that helpful at all.
Yeah. So now that I'm in year 20 of this speaking world, and after I've met Josh, I think I do it I think I do it every time. Every time. I just did another message the other day. Hey, how can I be 10% better? And so now it's become part of my own just rhythm, and I'm better for it. And that's been really good for my own soul. And if I'm honest too, sometimes it still hurts. Even if you go from 9.2 to 9.3, that feedback can hurt a little bit. But now that I've been doing it for so long, I've just gotten better at it. I think that's the thing, right? I'm not saying don't be like, you're never going to get hurt. It's just, you just become a little bit more accustomed to allowing yourself to hear certain things that are maybe uncomfortable and grow into that. And I think it's a good exercise for anyone.
And in regards to speaking, talk us through how you now think through of having a simple, clear call to action in every message. Because I know in the beginning, that was something you weren't as intentional about, and now it's something that you try to be intentional about in each message.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning to start with a problem is really important, because at the end of the day, if people don't think it's a problem, they're not going to pay attention or listen to you, right? You see a problem when you start your car and there's a problem. All of a sudden, now you're interested in everything about your car and what's wrong with it, right? And so to expose a problem that may be a felt need is really important. And then some speakers don't do this. And I've actually shared the problem and never gave an answer to that. And so to give an answer, but to make the answer small, actionable. Because long time ago, what I would do is I would either give 5 solutions or make the answer so big, which is so inspirational. Like, you got to change your life, right? It's like, yes, right? It's like, right? And I'm jumping up and down.
Sit
and
down,
I think,
David, sit down.
Yeah.
What song is this? I really like this song.
And I think I hit a home run, and it feels good. But oftentimes you go back and you're like, wait a minute, so what do I do next? And so to give an actionable, small step that's going to build lifelong habits, that's going to form us in a better way, is really important. And or if you're giving 5 solutions, it's more like it's one solution in a 5. So meaning like, hey, maybe some in the room, in light of this problem, are thinking this. And for you, this might be it. And maybe for some in the room, because you're empty nesters, this might be a better answer for you for this problem. And maybe for you, young people, I see you. And for you, with the same problem, this might be something that you need to explore. And so like for me, like, oh yeah, like for folks who follow Jesus, who are Christians, like if you are young in your faith, this might be the most helpful practical item in light of that problem. But if you've been following Jesus for a long time, I would invite you to consider this. And so again, it's the same one quick answer, but it's digestible to the different understandings of the audience. I do think is really helpful. So that's been something learned.
When you're crafting a message, in your context, not let's take your context at your church. So not a guest speaking engagement you would do, and you do a handful of those each year. But at church, you're getting sort of assigned a topic. It's in part, week 3 of a series. It's on this topic. Here it is. You're gonna hit on this. When you're beginning to craft that, do you first try to get down what is that one small actionable thing I'm going to ask to each subgroup in the audience? Or do you start with the problem because it's kind of been assigned to you here based on the topic, and go, how can I kind of get people on board, nodding along that, yes, indeed, this is a problem in our community or society?
Yeah, I generally tend to think through the problem first. I'm like, what is the problem? Like, so again, for example, let's say, I mean, we're a Silicon Valley. So let's say the problem is on our addiction to social media and our phones, right? I'm like, yeah, that's a problem. And why is it a problem? Where did it come from? How are we addicted to it? Why are we addicted to it? And then I just start to explore all the felt need. And then I can say, oh, then how do I get out of that? Right. And that's the final question for that solution. So I usually save that to the end. I mean, I start thinking about it all at once, but I generally tend to explore all angles of the problem itself and then try to land on a practical advice. Again, the old David Kim would say, yeah, so we have an addiction to our phones. And how I would end my message is just destroy your computer and your cell phone, right? Let's just go get after, right? Just live in an island somewhere by yourself. That's silly, but like usually it was just like massive, monumental answer to a big problem in a way where it's just not digestible. Mm-hmm. It's inspirational. Mm-hmm. And what I begin to think is that when you give solutions that are rarely inspirational, I do think that's when it's helpful. Because when I'm trying to inspire, I'm trying to stir up the pot even more. Mm-hmm. So I make it more grand. I use hyperbole. I use bigger steps to like stir the thing, right? Don't you want to get to know your wife better,
change your generation?
Yeah, right. Don't you want to be the family man you all wanted? And it's like, yeah, right. So therefore, right, it's like that, right?
Here it comes back in.
So
now imagine that hyperbole would be helpful in presenting the problem, kind of going appropriately grand with how big we've allowed it to get.
Yeah, so good. Yes.
And then getting granular with the solution, because I think it's hard for us to understand this as speakers, but when you're helpful, when you're specifically, practically, and realistically helpful, that's actually quite inspiring. Because now you have given someone something independent of your energy on stage that they can take back quietly to their context and implement. And then now, instead of looking to you for the answer, they can look to that momentum that you helped instill in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's take your phone example. We agree. So you paint the problem of, we're addicted to social media or to our devices. I think the broad, inspirational, not that helpful call to action would be, we got to cut that out. Imagine what it would look like to no longer feel that way, to, no longer have a temporary moment of addiction and turn to your phone. So that would be broad, inspirational, not helpful. Specific, but probably not wise, would be, smash your phone, run over it with your car. But maybe like a baby step would be, hey, identify the one app that you feel is that you're the most addicted to, that steers you off course of the things that you claim are the most important to you, and delete it for 24 hours and see how you feel. See if you feel more calm. See if you feel more congruent with the things that are important to you. Is that sort of the granularity you would look for in crafting that call to action?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what ends up happening is when people are given a task that is almost impossible to do, then they become overwhelmed or more anxious about the very thing that you're inviting. They already see the problem, and now you've actually burdened them all the more. So you've given them more burdens for them to carry as they leave, and have more guilt and shame as they go home. And I don't think that's the invitation of a good speaker or somebody who's trying. Again, the goal is to help the audience that you're serving, right? And so then I would say, what is a way in which I'm not burdening you, but I'm inviting you to a greater freedom and better life, right? And so when you think that way, then it has to be digestible. It has to make sense in my day to day. It has to be something where I can do in a way where it's like, and I'm even for, like, I love that. I think I'm even for something like a 1-2 punch. So something like, if you are just starting this, like, delete an app for 24 hours. And if you are in this room and you're more of a go-getter, right? And you want to take on a greater challenge, and to kind of also nod to those folks as well. They're like, because when the task is too easy, they also don't want to do it. Right. And for you, hey, like for you, the same action item, but delete it for a week. Right. And so kind of, again, inviting the room, again, still one action item, but you're giving a challenge to somebody who's working on for the first day versus somebody who's been working on for about a year. And for them, it's a little bit more, hey, lift a heavier weight. So you're still inviting them to the same thing.
So you're thinking like in a gradient. You're thinking in a spectrum of their capability.
Yeah. And it nods to their own capabilities and their excitement level, that you're also not dumbing me down. Because sometimes when you make it too simple, like, I feel now like dismissed by you. Like, you really think I can only delete it for 24 hours? You really think I'm just that? And by the way, I do. I don't think you have the power. but I am also, and that's really nice, right? And that's the very thing that we talked about in the book. Like, we're giving, like, the reason why we didn't title the book "I'm So Lonely and I'm So Thirsty for Friends and Community," right? Like, right? And
we would have, it would have got flagged on Amazon in a different category.
and it's because we're also giving almost power back to them, right? Like, hey, like we're not shaming you by that title. Like, we're 5 practices that you can do. Like, we're giving you a power back. And I do think there's something to that in human psychology where, hey, you can do this, right? So when you do an inspiration, it's just a burden that people can't carry. And if it's too simplistic, you feel like you're dismissing them and they feel belittled. So it's simple, but with a little bit of a stretch, I think is a great one to punch.
So what if I'm a newbie in the audience? I lack self-awareness and maturity, and I'm impulsive. So when I hear you say the 1 week, I don't have an accurate reflection of what I'm capable of. I go latch on to that 1 week. Do you attempt to cut that off from happening as a speaker, or is that a position as a speaker you go, I can't control how everyone's going to interpret this. I'm going to trust the individual members of the audience to have the maturity to determine which of the, one challenges, challenge 1A, challenge 1B is appropriate for their context.
Great question. I would say you solve that in the beginning with your problem. So what I mean by that is, when you throw out the problem, you have to invite them to self-assess and be self-aware of the problem that you are inviting them to consider. So I would say, maybe some of you are saying, hey, this is not a problem for me. I know many people are addicted to their phones. I'm not that addicted. And then what you do is, hey, like, if you are looking at your phone for more than an hour a day, the national data will tell you that that's actually considered an addiction, right? So like, you use data and research to say, after an hour, after 2 hours, it's considered officially an addiction because of XYZ research. Therefore, even though you think 1 hour is not a form of addiction, it is. Or you say, I don't think I look at the phone that much. Well, if you scroll your phone and see how much time that you've been on it, maybe that's going to give you a different assessment of your own assessment of the situation. And so I do think, as you're rolling out the problem, you have to also give them tools to be self-assessing and become self-aware so that when the action item comes, they are clear about their action item.
That's good.
I mean, there are places where you can't control, sure, but I do think self-assessment is really important as a speaker to do.
So let's say there's
if it's not, then it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, for sure. That's fair. Let's say someone's listening. They have an idea for a book. It's been nagging at them to move forward. In the context of this one simple, clear action item, someone like you, rewind 2 years ago, has this lived experience, this curiosity to research and find if their experience would be helpful to others. What should be a small, simple step that person can take to begin to craft their book?
That's good. Yeah, I would say if you are on that journey, I do think the first thing that would be really helpful is to talk about your book with a trusted friend. And so I think that really is important because once you are like getting excited, there's just like a lot going on in you, and to process that and saying, where's the excitement even coming from, right? And then where's the content coming from? Is it coming from your trauma or your pain, or is this something that you've overcome, or is this something that you are still yet to overcome? Because that's also important. And maybe that's you're still processing it and it's not ready for it to be a book yet. So kind of knowing where the excitement and the energy is coming from gives you a great timeline of the book. Hey, are you writing it because your best friend wrote a book and you're writing it out of jealousy? Okay, well, writing out of a different kind of posture will have its own challenges and its own angle and even emotions attached to it. So just like figuring out where all your energy is coming from and naming them and processing it with a friend is, I would say, the first real thing. And that's, I think, how it began with you, Josh. Like, man, like how did this all come about? Like, oh my gosh, like, let's talk about that. Is this, are you, and then we start to kind of talk about that. And I do think that having that space is really important. And then you asked me some hard questions too at that time. You're like, hey, David, like, do you want to do this because of this reason? I just want to be clear with you. And if that's okay. But I just want to know if that's the reason why you want to write, and if it's for that. And so to have those kind of questions asked back to you really helps you to understand where all of your passions and energies are coming from. And that gives you a good framework in which you can then say, oh yeah, what is the next step in which to ask the next question?
I think back to that guy's trip to Arnold as the catalytic moment for Made to Belong, because it seems like there we were sitting in the backdrop of, a weekend of deep, meaningful friendship, community, brotherhood, silly moments where we're crying. Well, I'm not, but you guys are. Moments where we're sharing deep, personal, important things. And then I recall, at least I recall that moment being sort of, I felt like the line in the sand for you, that you begin to share that idea. And it's like, hey, what makes this group, this friendship, this community work? Sharing those ideas, I thought that's the line in the sand. Like, for David now, there's no turning back. This is something now he's going to write.
Right. And that was helpful to be echoed by the very people that was processing that with me. And so, yeah, maybe you are just crazy and you just need some good feedback back. And so to have that community around you to give those kind of feedback and to even notice and say, yeah, that is the very thing that's going to be the secret sauce for your whatever, XYZ. I think that's probably a good next step for everyone that's thinking about a book. And you all have 2 or 3 friends like that in your life that's been already processing much with you. And so I would say go back to them and just begin to share and see what comes about, what gets excavated in those conversations.
I love it. David Kim,
So
thank
good.
you, sir. Good stuff.
Thanks.
That's it.
So good, David. Yeah.
How'd you feel?
Naked.
Good.
That explains the lack of shirt. So that's,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For that.
Again, audio only, David. I mean, I know you've gotten advice on how to grow your social media following through nudity, but not here. Not in my backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was fun. I don't know. What'd you guys think?
You did great.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, totally awesome. And I love, David, it's fun to see. I haven't seen that journey, but to hear how well integrated the heart and the head seem to be in you. And I know that's come at quite a cost over a long period of time. I'm so thankful that you finally asked for some feedback, because clearly you've got the gifting and calling, but the ability really to grow into someone who can receive that and better your message and better how you serve because of that feedback. And but it's clear that you've done a lot of work. I think that comes through, and I got a lot of that personally.
Thank you. Thanks for noticing that. Yeah.
Did you know Jesse? Did you know he used to work in Menlo?
I mean, we just
talked about
chatted
that
right before.
Yeah.
You were very late to the conversation.
I showed up
and so
4 minutes early. Do not stop that.
Yeah. And have you guys been working together for a while now, or
we've known each other
is this
for
a new-
a long time? Actually, I was thinking about that. It's probably 07, something
That
like
sounds
that.
right.
But cross paths at Menlo, and then I started using I gave him my pager number, I think, and then we kind of went back and forth from there.
Yeah. At first, I just wanted drugs. I was like, only people who have a pager are drug dealers.
Right.
I kept paging you for drugs. You wouldn't bring them. And I was like, there's no way to build trust in a friendship.
and that's when I started giving him 80% of everything I have for just no apparent reason.
Again, this is not the actual
this seems
percentage.
to be the common theme of everyone that works with Josh.
No, it's the inverse. This is not the correct percentage. This is not the correct percentage. But I appreciate that we're proliferating this idea.
Well, I think once I signed the friendship contract you had me do, that was especially helpful to just define the boundaries, so I would stop texting you, things like that.
If anyone would have a friendship contract, I would. Actually,
you would.
I mean,
you're now
Make a note
taking
of that.
notes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's a decent idea. That is a decent idea.
Yeah.
I once had a net promoter score that I sent to all of my friends to ask them anonymously for like how helpful or good of a friend I was.
You serious?
It did not go well. Well, I mean, yeah, it was sort of what I expected, but it was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that. All right, I see what David.
That was
means
including your wife, right?
Oh, for sure.
That's sort of what bent the score down. And
That's right. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I know what you mean about the painful process of intentionally asking for feedback. There's a couple people I know who do quarterly ask their wife to score them on 5 or 6 areas. I think I did this once before a men's group. There were like 4 or 5 categories I asked her to score me on. And there were like 2 categories I got an 8 or 9 in. And then there were like 2 categories I think I got a 4 in.
Wow.
And it was like,
Beautiful.
Okay, there we go.
Empathy is the one that you got an 8 in. Is that correct?
Stop it. Definitely not. No, definitely not.
Are you guys? So how many of these are you guys doing? And how many are
This is
you
the last
releasing?
one. I think this is gonna be the last one. Frankly, I mean, it
Time
just
to
hasn't
shut it
gone that
down.
well.
No. This is the third we've recorded,
Yep.
and I think we'll probably release 2 a month and try to record 3 or 4 a month, so that when
Cool.
I just want to go into the cave for a couple months, we still have stuff.
Yeah.
Jesse still has stuff he can publish.
But yeah, David, your stuff
Yeah,
was very just really complemented well the previous two. And I'm glad that we kind of went after the publishing writing side of things, because there's so much in there, especially that vulnerability that, okay, here's the deal. If you want to be part of this, you're going to have to really expose yourself and learn all kinds of new ways of communicating that thing that's so personal to you, which is really hard to do. It's hard not to take everything personally.
Yeah.
And Jesse, you wrote a book back in the day about the intersection of faith and social media and online culture.
Yeah.
What do you look back on and kind of go, oh, what was I thinking?
Yes, that's pretty much sums up the whole thing. I just wanted my name on the side of a book. So I think, in fact, I worked on it for a year, and then the editor said, none of this works. And so then I had 7 weeks before the deadline.
Is that true?
Yeah.
They said none of it, or like
they basically said, no, they basically said none of that's really, it sounded like a blog. It was very anecdotal. And then I aired the other way and then did a lot more research. And then I don't think I had any of my voice really in it by the end. But the process was, just, it's like marriage. It just kind of grinds out the stuff that is not working well. I'm so thankful for it. I don't know that I'd ever do it again. Certainly not do it in that way. But
meaning with a traditional publisher, or you would now know how to get out of you what you wanted to say.
I think that's a good way to put that last part of just humility, in the sense of like, I'm nothing, not I'm nothing and I have nothing to say, and please help me. More humility in the sense of, I don't know fully how to say what I want. I'm deeply passionate about saying, can you help me become that kind of communicator? I just love when Rob Bell talks about, each form of communication requires a new learning. So doing a podcast is different than speaking on a stage, is different than writing a book, is different than writing a blog or an article. But it's such I think it does have to be that, for it to really be sustainable, that this is part of who I am. I want to steward this well. That means I'm going to invite others in to help me do that.
I feel that learning curve on the podcast side of things. I mean, maybe like we all approach speaking or writing or whatever, you develop a snobby opinion of what you like as a consumer, right? So I have strong opinions about what I like as a listener of podcasts. And then I've been interviewed on other podcasts, and I have strong opinions about those that have gone well. Most of them have. A handful extraordinarily poorly. So I have strong opinions there. But then, as you said, it's a different art form. So in the beginning, I feel like I'm wearing my dad. Not that I know my biological father. That got dark. I feel like I'm wearing my dad's suit. It's oversized. I'm some amalgamation of what I think I'm supposed to be and what I aspire to be.
Yeah.
And week after week, you try to close that gap. I think that's what all of us are doing. On stage, page, or screen. David, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you for having me, guys.